everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It is Francis and Nate. Nate, happy Veterans Day. I know Switzerland doesn't celebrate, I guess. I don't know if you have an Applebee's to get a free appetizer at out there.
I am not aware of them, like Remembrance Sunday, anything here, which would make sense in that Switzerland was neutral in the First World War.
They didn't do anything.
They didn't do anything. I mean, they were basically isolated and like blockaded. The same in World War II. You know, in World War II, they shot down a lot of both Allied and Axis aircraft that entered their airspace. Famously, there's a story that the only time American POWs have been awarded the POW medal for being held in captivity by a non-enemy or a putative ally was a group of American servicemen, airmen who were shot down over Switzerland during the Second World War and happened to wind up in a POW camp run by an extremely pro-Nazi guy. And he was such a dick to the Americans that eventually, it took until like the 2000s, but they basically gave these guys the POW medal, which normally you wouldn't get if you weren't held by the actual enemy you were fighting or an ally of the enemy.
These guys were Nazi adjacent enough that it counts,
Switzerland as a country is interesting. It's a little more complicated than that. I mean, the thing with Switzerland is that they did a lot of stuff that there's three categories. There's things they did where they're actually like, no, the privacy of our client, of our citizens, of our banking clients, of our, people who have Swiss permanent residency, people who have refugee status here, like that's inviolable. We will not let you deport people or take people or requisition their assets. That also goes other ways with the banking thing where it's like, no, privacy is supreme. And it took decades before they acknowledged that they held purloined funds from, basically war profiteers. And I think in some cases, spoils taken by the Nazis from victims of the Holocaust. So that obviously is bad. They were pretty iron fisted in enforcing their border when it came to people trying to get across the border to claim refugee status. They turned a lot of people away. They shot people. But also if people were granted refugee status, then like they actually were protected. It's a weird situation. The biggest thing with Switzerland people talk about is kind of like the immediate thing that comes to mind is Nazi gold. And most people
I was going to say clocks.
Well, we talk about the war. I mean, like you talk about Switzerland, the country. I mean, I remember seeing a video one time where they were going around like border areas of Germany and asking random Germans what was the first thing that came to mind when you said Switzerland. And there was a kind of youngish 20s German dude. He's like, I don't know, Nazi gold and tax evasion. And on one hand, that's funny. On the other hand, it's like, brother, you're German.
Yeah.
So
you don't get to.
but the thing is that
the European Spider-Man's pointing at each other.
Yeah. I mean, I bring up the stuff about in World War I, like I am not aware of them being involved. I don't believe they've been involved in a war since the 19th century. I think since like basically the Napoleonic era, Switzerland was actually invaded by Napoleon and parts of Switzerland were annexed into France. And then post Waterloo, post Napoleon's, second big deposing loss, taking L's, Switzerland was restored to, sovereignty. And that's when Geneva, the canton I live in, became, it basically, I don't know when it was ratified. And I'll give it a story as to why I'm so tired right now. But
we don't have to get too deep into Switzerland.
But what I'm trying to say is that, like, just to finish my
Switzerland podcast,
my parentheses thing about it is the Nazi gold thing. It's like lots and lots of European countries took Nazi like gold bullion in order to basically they bought Nazi gold bullion and sold the Nazis foreign currency, like either their currency or other countries' currencies, because the Nazis being economically blockaded didn't have a lot of foreign currency reserves. Denmark did this. The Netherlands did this. France did this. Switzerland did this. Austria did this. Here's the problem. Here's the thing. Why is Switzerland the one that people bring it up? Well, it's like, I think for one, because they think Nazi gold, they think like, people's Holocaust victims' valuables being held in bank vaults, but also Switzerland is the only one of those countries that didn't get invaded and then occupied.
Yeah.
So because of the fact they did it, and then the people who made that decision like didn't get fucking, the Nazi treatment. There is, but I'll leave you with this one. They did a like big Truth and Reconciliation Commission from like the end of the 90s into the 2000s. And the findings, one of the bigger things that blew my mind about all of this is obviously Switzerland has a really big arms industry and has for a long time. There are a number of major Swiss arms manufacturers who were active during World War II. And when it came time to cough up the goods for what they did during the war, they're like, damn, we just don't have records. They're lost. Something must have happened. And the commission was like, whoops, what can you do?
Yeah.
And it's like,
happened. It was a war. What do you want?
It's a war. Sometimes, we were busy. Well, we were kind of not busy, but we were also
get burned.
Busy. Yeah. I mean, in fairness, that's also the British approach, but that's typically what they do to people's like boarding landing cards showing that they have right to have permanent residency in Britain, and then they deport them when they're in like their 80s. We don't have Veterans Day here. There is obviously military culture stuff. I'm only aware of it tangentially because you see it, but you don't see it as much here as you do elsewhere in the country. I mean, obviously every male notionally has to do military service, or there's some alternate services available. You can just not and pay a fine, but it's obviously pretty pricey. I mean, I've met people who have opted to just pay the fine. Cynthia's ex-partner did his military service, but then he did grad school and like wound up having to pay a fine. He did grad school in America because he was too old when he got done to finish out his contract. One of my friends here, he's a French citizen as well as a Swiss citizen. And so in France, if you go to like a 1-day PowerPoint briefing about here's what you can do in the French military, that meets your French military service requirement. And you could then turn around and be like, hey, I did my military service in France, and like it counts.
And you get my free Applebee's, baby. I did the PowerPoint.
The right wingers here are trying to change that because a lot of people who are dual citizens do this.
To be fair, a PowerPoint presentation is like the one military experience that everybody in the American military like has.
Yeah,
like, we all didn't get shot at. We all didn't go do the hua bullshit, but we have all sat through a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in retrospect, I'm trying to think what the funniest PowerPoint presentation in terms of like a thing that we would just treat as normal because it's a thing that we're just used to, versus if you just took that out of context and you forced, or even you just exposed someone outside the military to it, it would just seem so surreal. I'm wondering what your answer is.
I remember having to take a PowerPoint presentation about not taking bribes. Like this whole thing on like the amount of like, if somebody from a foreign nation is going to give you a gift, it can only be worth this much and it has to be this. And you can't take a gift from, so if you're as if anybody was ever going to roll up to me, fucking Sergeant Horton, and be like, here's a $500 gold watch, Sergeant Horton, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And this class was an hour and a half. Like it covered so many different things. There was also the one that I did think was kind of ridiculous, but I understood it, was the how to not get kidnapped in a foreign country one. Because apparently that was going to be a big thing that happens to all of us. But definitely the hour and 90 minutes of don't take bribes that nobody will ever like. And also I'm supposed to like look up the dollar value of this before somebody hands it to me, before I take this thing.
I assume that before you deployed that they put you through some of the classes where it's like, at least the second time, this probably wasn't so much of a thing the first time because it was early on, where they're like, here's the videos where it's like, it's fucked up, but we're going to show you videos from like insurgents showing people, getting murked.
Oh my God,
because it's like, here's like, you can see like these dudes like kind of hang out and milling around the hood of a Humvee. A guy takes his helmet off, a sniper hits him, the way they get out of the vehicle and they don't check around them, and then an IED goes off, stuff like that.
Yeah, Faces of Death.
Yeah, basically Army Faces of Death. Yes, 100%.
We watched so many of those videos.
Yeah, I know.
And then I got overseas and nobody did any of that shit. Ever.
No. So people who aren't familiar understand, we're not saying that we weren't watching videos of the U.S. military killing insurgents or civilians or things abroad. That might be a thing people would think. No, what we're describing is they would show us presentations of footage captured from insurgents filming American military and foreign military in Iraq and Afghanistan getting killed, and be like, don't do what this guy did. And it's like video of guy getting shot in the tower of a guard tower because like he's just kind of standing still and profiling his head, or like person just kind of getting out of the vehicle and not really looking around, getting shot. Like a lot of times though, it's like, having done those kinds of patrols and been in those situations, it becomes so normalized that it's really difficult to like, people are like, yep, that won't be me. And it's like, yeah, okay. You let me know when you're on month 9 of doing the same shit over and fucking over again.
Yeah, when they say an IED might be underneath a pile of trash, and you go over there and like this, everything is a pile of trash. There's no
public sanitation, so like the trash is everywhere. I mean, I would say the thing though, I brought this up not to talk, although it is macabre and kind of fucked up. I do want to say one of my favorite parts of it was they would never turn the sound down on it, so you always got the the bitch and fucking nasheed music. Yeah.
The auto call to prayer as you watch somebody get domed.
Yeah, that kind of shit. I sat through a briefing of a similar scope, except as an orientation to Alaska, where they were showing us like AAR videos of how to not get killed by moose.
Okay.
Like your Alaska orientation, and they had a big section on like don't get killed by moose, and they showed us a video of a person getting kicked to death by a moose because they wouldn't stop trying to get up, and the moose just kept running circles around them and back kicking them. And they're like, if a moose attacks you, just lie down and play dead.
Okay, I could do that. That's probably what I would do if a moose came upon me anyway.
They are gigantic.
I guess don't run from them too.
It's more like if you can run from them in a way where like you're far enough away, but like if you try to run from them, or rather if they're close to you and you're trying to get away in any way and you're moving, their sort of instinctive response, and this is particular for cow mooses who have calves, they will just basically run circles around you and kick you because that's what they do to a predator, and they think you're a predator. Yeah. I don't know if have you ever seen one in real life?
No, it's actually, my wife and I want to do a trip to Alaska mostly to see a moose, because you can't put a moose in a zoo, because of the way a moose has to migrate and has to eat all up and down like over 1,000-mile radius. So like there is no moose in a zoo. I have seen videos of them running alongside cars. I know they're the size of a minivan. They're fast as shit.
They're fucking gigantic. What you were not prepared for is how tall they are.
I got to send you the video of the Great Pyrenees that's yelling at a moose. There's like some family on a vacation and a moose is coming out of the water and a Great Pyrenees is just chasing after it. And the moose is just like, I don't want this. I don't care about it. And the family's just like, I don't go near it. Like if that dog dies, the dog's dead, man. There's nothing we can do about it.
It's going to give that moose was sort of like videos of people thinking it's funny when their little yappy dog is like barking and chasing and running circles around an alligator. And then periodically you see one where then the dog just gets eaten. Mm-hmm. I would say though, with moose, the thing is, I can't even count how many times I've seen them just because I was stationed in Alaska, and both when we were in Anchorage, because they're all over in Anchorage, and then also certainly up in the training areas in north of the coastal range. They're there and they're big. They're bigger. I remember being at Donnelly training area and seeing like big bull moose like in August, September timeframe, and they're not the biggest animals I've ever seen in my life, because I've seen elephants and hippopotamuses in a zoo, but they are by far the biggest animals I've ever seen in the wild. And they're just.
But there's a fence between you and an elephant.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen brown bears like grizzly bears in Alaska too, but to be honest, I never had a freaky encounter with either brown bears or black bears. We'd see them and they were fucking massive, but they were typically bugging out as soon as they saw us or heard us. You can get in situations similarly with bears where they feel threatened and then you're like, oh God, you can't really get away. But I thankfully never had that happen. And obviously, like, you can tell bears are big even if you don't see one, because when you see grizzly bear shit on the road, you're like, that looks like what a horse would put out. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. But I would say with moose, it's just wild because I'm driving down the road in Anchorage one time and there was just a moose eating from a tree in like a suburban neighborhood. I mean, but then also one time going running on the trails in summer and then happening upon a cow moose with calves and being like, oh fuck. And the ear stuck up, the hair bristled on the neck. I was like, shit. Okay. So I'm not going that way. Turn around, and you just try to be like, move slowly and calmly and be like, hi, I'm not going to startle you. I'm going to turn around, because you could see the calves were on the other side of the trail. And then the mother moose was on the opposite side. No. And I was going to be coming between them. I'm like, hell no, I am not doing that. So yeah, I would say also talking about PowerPoint. So the moose orientation, the sort of don't become a victim of a moose after action report video. And then I think this is
terrorist moose.
This is fucked up, but it's true, is that obviously the U.S. military used to have something called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which is we could talk about it at length if we wanted to.
Explain it for the kids, because it's been a while. It's been 15 years since Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Okay, so right. Where to begin?
Well, you could be gay in the army as long as you didn't tell anybody
in the military
about it.
In general. So there's a guy named Randy Schultz who wrote a book called Conduct Unbecoming. It's actually really good. It's about gays in the U.S. military since the establishment of America. Randy Schultz was a gay journalist. He wrote a book called "And the Band Played On" that it has some flaws, but it's like one of the most comprehensive books about the advent of AIDS and how AIDS was, discovered and reported in like AIDS activism. His last book before he died was Conduct Unbecoming. And it was interesting reading that because I had only ever been in the military when it was Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then subsequently when you could serve openly, which obviously it feels like they're trying to go back on in some ways. Reading that book was interesting because I realized kind of trying to sniff out witch hunt gays and lesbians in the military was just like a favorite pastime of commands. It was just bizarre. The kind of shit they would get into people's business for. My mom said she had a friend who kept getting investigated, and he was a single guy. He had dated women. He wasn't, as far as she knew, interested in men and had never had sex with men, had never had a relationship with men, but he kept getting, basically, there was you're too neat. Your desk drawer's too organized. You keep yourself too clean. Your uniform's too sharp. Your haircut's too good. Your bitch too bad. Your weed too loud. They'll kill you. And
you put everything at a right angle on your desk, bro. That's gay.
Well,
gay as hell.
I remember in the Randy Schultz book, it was like, yeah, every time there was a new change of command, or like for CID, for like this one Navy post for like, or NCIS, then she'd be like, all right, time to investigate the women's volleyball team. Like it was constant. And so it was really horrific because it's like, oh, being gay means you're a risk of blackmail. And so we're going to blackmail the shit out of you. And so in the 90s, Clinton had made the campaign promise that if he were elected, he would allow gays and lesbians to serve openly. You'll notice the omission of trans people, non-binary people, gender non-conforming people, because in the 90s that was not really, to be honest with you, it's not as if those other genders didn't exist, but I think in terms of the discourse, in terms of the politics around it, it was not acknowledged in the news and wider culture.
We were trying to get people to be okay with a man kissing another man first. Like that was the first hurdle to get over, which is a hurdle we're still getting over.
So Clinton wins in 92, and the kind of the neoliberal fudge, as often happens, is they decide to come up with a policy. Now, it is possible they might not have been able to get serving openly through Congress, through the House and the Senate. I don't know. But what I do know is what they wound up coming up with is a policy called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, where if you were gay, you could serve in the military so long as you never told anyone you were gay, you never got caught or allowed evidence to be procured of you engaged in same-sex relations, and you never tried to marry someone of the same sex. So how do I know this? Bringing it back to my point, the Army homosexual conduct policy PowerPoint briefing that I had to receive every year was very funny, the phrasing of that. But there was statements, acts, and marriage. That is the SAM. That is the things you can get dinged up on.
Yeah, and to let people know too, homosexuality or homosexual sex is illegal according to the UCMJ. Any kind of sexual intercourse that is not penis and vagina, illegal.
Also, adultery.
At least it was.
Adultery.
Illegal.
I don't know about this, like, kind of Baroque sex acts, whether they're legal or not, but I know the UCMJ is obviously pretty draconian about this. What I'll say is that in the olden days, here's the thing. Don't Ask, Don't Tell obviously was a half measure. It was to some extent an improvement because a lot of people I knew who served in the military before Don't Ask, Don't Tell were like, no, they would just flat out ask you, are you gay? Like your command would ask you, are you gay? And like, if you, for some reason, they were able to prove that you were, if you had said no, like they'd also hit you for I don't know what the technical charge would be for lying to your command, but like a false statement thing.
It's in the movie Stripes. Like when Harold Ramis and Bill Murray are joining the Army, one of the first things they ask, are either of you homosexuals? That was just a recruiter's question.
Yeah, they would ask you that question. And
they do that as a joke, but that was literally part of it in the 70s and 80s was just like, are you gay? Yes. Get the fuck out of here.
And so Don't Ask, Don't Tell basically made it so they weren't allowed to ask, you weren't allowed to tell. However, some of the issues here are, okay, number one, if you got caught in any way, they basically had to chapter you out. Like if it was like, I mean, commands could make the decision whether or not they wanted to enforce it. And it was really kind of like, in a lot of ways, it was dependent on the commander, but the military in general was pretty homophobic. And I saw people get kicked out of the Army under Don't Ask, Don't Tell while I was on active duty in 2008. It happened in my battalion. And also, I know this from personal experience because it happened to me. If someone were to find out about your sexual orientation and, in my case, assault you, not sexually, but physically assault you, and threaten you and blackmail you and threaten your life, make a very unsubtle gesture of leaving a loaded gun in their room with the door open, you can't. We were living on post. Now, I could have gone to the cops and be like, this motherfucker's got a gun he's not supposed to have. He's supposed to be in the arms room. But if I had gone, I was scared that if I had gone, he'd be like, yeah, well, I heard him talking on the phone to his friend talking about that he likes dudes. I could have gotten kicked out of the military. Now, in retrospect, would that have been that bad of a thing? No, but you're 23 and you just spent 4 years training to be this fucking thing. And then it happens and you're like, oh my God, like I can either live with this person who says they're going to kill me, or I can go to the cops and get kicked out of the military. And then everyone back home, my whole family is going to learn that I'm bisexual. So like that was one of the sides of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's like, because we lived on post, even if we'd lived off post, if it had been a police report, it would have come out. It could have potentially been a thing. Now, would they have done anything? I don't know. But there was like the chilling factor there. And I know lots of people who have stories like this, where they were threatened, they were blackmailed. They were made to basically to keep a secret to their own detriment. And obviously, like, that's better than, the change of command ceremony and CID being like, okay, now how do we go find somebody whose uniform is too starched and call them an F slur? Like nowadays, after Obama got elected, basically they did like a sort of fact-finding-y thing, and they changed the policy in 2011. But as of 2010, when we came back from Afghanistan, they basically were like, don't enforce it anymore. Like, we're not like we're doing the fact-finding, but we're going to change the policy. We have to do the fact-finding to present it to Congress. So like they weren't kicking people out anymore. And then once I think it was 2011, they changed it. Obviously for transgender rights, it was different. A lot of the like literature about like having, it was like LGT soldiers or LGB soldiers, because it was like they didn't have anything to address transgender soldiers, people who were any kind of gender nonconforming, any kind of had identified as a different gender, that had some kind of gender confirmation. Like that was not addressed. It did get addressed later. By that point, I was out and I wasn't receiving the briefings.
And you get these briefings are being done by like a 27-year-old staff sergeant. So like it's already hard to get him to go through the regular PowerPoint, because I had to do a lot of these trainings. It would be some good old boy, sergeant who's going through these through the trainings and everything and telling you everything that's going on. And just like, just don't be an F slur, guys. Just don't be and it's like this.
They might be an F slur, but you can't call an F slur an F slur. That I heard that line a lot. Yeah.
I actually had a conversation with an NCO one time who had this, like, he was worried that it's like the Army's getting soft. You can't even have like a pinup calendar anymore. And I was like, you can't put naked people all over your office in the Army. Nobody gives a shit what you do at home, dude. And it was like such a light bulb moment for him. Yeah. Like he didn't understand that like the Army's not policing your porno at home. Just don't put up a nudie calendar at work.
And frankly, like for soldiers in the barracks, like obviously it's the thing if they're doing like an inspection, or I can't remember what they called it anymore. And they do like the super lockdown inspections and shit. Yeah. Like you kind of don't want to have that stuff up, but it's not really like the only time that I ever saw stuff like pornography being enforced, like saying like ban on, was like because technically speaking, it violated General Order Number 1 if you were deployed. Home station, like, that's it. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. That would be like, if your commander's a weird evangelical, but like in general, that wasn't the thing they cared about. Obviously, you couldn't put it in your office, but it's like, come on, man. I mean,
that was the thing that was hemming him up, was just like, yeah, you can't, I understand that like you work in a machine, like a mechanic shop or a machine shop, and it's one way, but like, it's just not that way anymore, guy. Like, and that's,
well, yeah,
you gotta get over that.
Active duty, I mean, I can remember being really taken aback by this, where officers, like senior officers that I really respected, like who I'd worked with on deployment, who were really, really sharp, and we're back at home station, and like some of the ways they talk in meetings using like homophobic slurs or ableist slurs and stuff. Like in fairness, like the R word like was a thing that I think I heard people saying it without trying to shock, just talking normally in their view. Yeah. When I worked in a corporate job in New York City in 2016, 17, 18. So like obviously that's a cultural shift that's ongoing, and the right-wing freaks in America really seem to want to reclaim that. But yeah, I was really taken aback. I was like, that's really, I mean, on one hand, I kind of like, had more sort of self-knowledge of like that word is describing me. I don't really like hearing my boss, who I respect, using it. But also the fact I'm like, I know enough about the civilian world, man, that you can't be fucking, at least in America, you can't be fucking talking like this shit. Like certainly not.
Nobody talks like that at my job, my corporate job. Absolutely. No. And if anybody did, everybody would just be like, whoa, why are you dropping the R word in here?
Yeah. I mean, like I had and in fact, I mean, yeah, there's so
many other words. You
weird.
Dipshit, you dumbass, you idiot.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I gotta say, my one of the biggest things that turned me around on it was when my wife and I first started dating. She has a cousin who has a form of Downs, and she's like, he hates that word. He hates that word, and he was a really cool dude. I love talking to him. He loves to talk about wrestling, and it's funny because when I met him, I had just gotten back from deployment. I didn't have a job. My wife and I were kind of dating, and I meet this guy, and he's got a steady job for the last 10 years and a girlfriend, and he's getting his own place. Is like, God damn, he's doing better than I am. How am I going to insult this dude?
I mean, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes when you'd see like screenshots of kind of like pushing the limit jokes from Twitter and elsewhere, like it's not as if it's something I would repeat out loud, certainly not on a recording, but I will admit to have laughed. And I actually it was more recent, and that's regrettable in my case, but it's the truth, in terms of like being at the point where I just don't even find it funny at all. And I mean, we grew up in an era where people said it all the time. We grew up in an era where the slightly less kind of slurry version of the R word was the term they just used as almost like a medical term. But for me, it was, this is embarrassing. It's something I did, but I was coming back from a flight. It's embarrassing in the sense that it's so recent. And I have to stipulate that it's not as if I'm like, oh, in the secret chat fucking just going off nuts. But it's more like, I was like, yeah, that's not a thing you should say in public. However, when I see like screenshots of jokes. Sometimes it would make me laugh, even if it used language like that. I'll admit this. I was coming back here. We'd moved to Geneva already, and I was waiting to get baggage claim. And I was exhausted. I can't remember where I was coming from, but it probably was like a morning flight or something where I just traveling, taking forever. And I remember correctly, I was hot in the terminal and I really just wanted to get out of there. I was waiting on my bags and there were a bunch of Americans coming in. There was some kind of like tactical arms industry thing. There were so many fucking dudes with Pelican cases and the hair and the bags and the shit, and all Americans, and a lot of them like
5'11" pants.
Yeah, 5'11s and Southern accents. It's like there must be something about, because there's a huge exposition center here, maybe like an arms thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I looked over and a dude was taking a picture of me. And I was like, what the fuck? I just looked at him. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck are you doing? And he realized it and kind of like skittered away. And I realized he wasn't taking a picture of me. He was taking a picture of the sign above the baggage carousel for baggage claim, because it said the baggage off that was delayed. And in French, it's retardé. So RETARDE with a forward accent. And he thought, oh, that is so funny. They're calling the baggage the R word. And the dude was older than me. And I'm 40. I was 40 at the time. I'm 41 now. And I was like, that is so fucking embarrassing that you have basically like, if there were ever a sort of transgressive thrill of like seeing insane Zoomers with like 18 different fucking gaming feeds at once saying fucked up jokes and screenshotting it, it's all gone now. Seeing a dude in his 50s be like, it's a retard. Like, no, man, it's done.
Yeah.
It's not funny. And we grew up in an era where we grew up in a part of America that was kind of like reflexively hateful. And like, that's how people talked. You do have to do some unlearning, but man, after I saw that,
it kind of loses its,
it's like what a 15-year-old would do. And if a 15-year-old dude, I'd be like, bro, grow up, man. What the fuck's wrong with you? So seeing someone who's like old enough to be my dad doing that, it's like, man. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of how it looks if any one of us is ever joking, laughing, doing it, like anything along those lines. It's like, that's exactly what it is. It's you refusing to grow up. You being like, I'm going to say the fucked up shit we said, when we were in the year 2000, when we were 16.
Trump's back in power, man. We get to use all the old slurs again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, but I don't want to.
I don't want to.
Anymore.
I mean, it was the same way when we watched Fight Club, and I was just like, this is horrible.
Look, I had this same problem when I was years ago, when I had never watched 16 Candles, and my wife was like, oh, 16 Candles is a classic. You should watch it, John Hughes. So I watched it, and like hearing the main character, like the hero, use the F slur multiple times and just like took me completely out of it. And like, I understand, a movie like that is something that people have nostalgia for. But when you watch something like that in your 30s and you're just like, wow, this kid's a fucking asshole. There's so many other words that he could have used. Although I will say one of the ones that sticks with me is the only thing that I remember from the movie E.T., other than the flying and the bikes and everything, is at one point Elliot yells at his brother, "It was nothing like that penis breath." And I think that's like one of the funniest ways to tell somebody is like, you suck dick.
You know what's so funny is that like there's a part of me that remembers being a kid that age in that era. Obviously, like I'm too young to like, that movie came out in the early 80s, but in a way, like those kinds of jokes, I remember my older brother's friends saying that kind of stuff, in elementary school, late elementary school, and it's like, it wouldn't even have occurred to us that it was a reference to sucking dick. It would just be like, no, because your breath's fucked. It's a funny thing to say, and it's like,
dicks smell bad and your breath smells like a dick. You need to brush your teeth. It's not even like you should stop sucking dick. It's you should brush your teeth after you suck dick.
There was a thing that we used to say in like second grade in Germany to each other. We call each other in German. It was like Steckdosenbefruchter or Steckdosenbetriebe, which literally means like power socket fertilizer or power socket penetrator. And it's like, as like 8-year-olds, you're like, you fuck power sockets. You stick your tiny dick into power sockets. And it's like, none of us had any idea what that means at all. But it's just like, yeah, man, this is, the language that you learn.
It sounds good in German is the problem. It sounds like a really good insult in German. You can't say that in America. It's like, you fuck a power outlet. That just sounds like you sound like an idiot. But
yeah, I mean, yeah.
You drop that shit in German, especially you guys got the 220 line, so it's going to be spicy.
Yeah, it's gonna real hit you hard with it. I mean, yeah, but also we were 8. Like stuff that we thought was funny back then isn't funny now. I mean, and that's the thing is that, like, I don't think that in most of our cases, if you actually like learned anything from your life experience, you would think of the jokes that you thought were hilarious when you were 8 and be like, yeah, I want to talk like that. And yet for some reason, there's this cachet of being like, I mean, it's primarily men. There are women who do this as well, but in general, it's primarily men. It feels like this kind of, I'm going to be a shithead. And the way I'm going to manifest being a shithead is copying the affect of like a teenage / late teens, early 20s guy. who's just a dick.
I'm going to be a 4chaner. Like, it's been around long enough. That you
I mean, the thing is that like, it's funny because I've encountered people who use the same screen name since they were on the Something Awful forums in the mid 2000s. And like, a lot of them are older than me and they got kids, and most of them aren't talking like, some of them still are, which is fucked up, but most of them aren't talking that way anymore. And it's like, I would be really, I mean, anytime that I've had something happen where like a person's messaged me on like Facebook Messenger or something, and they haven't messaged me since like 2010, and I scroll back through our messages, nothing I'm saying is like slurs or untoward, you know what I mean? It's not like it would be, oh wow, I had my pre-woke period, but there was a kind of just like the way I talked, I'm like, I don't like that. That's dickish.
Yeah.
That's mean. That's judgmental. That's weird. I don't like that at all. And I think that's okay. Like, you don't have to spend your life, doing penance and regretting stuff. Presumably that you have like something mega fucked up. But I think that letting go of that and kind of like, maybe your 15-year-old self would think you're boring, but you know what? My 15-year-old self would be like, wait, you don't have to go to school. you have enough money, you can buy the musical instruments you want, and you actually know how to play them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you change over life, and it's good to like to abandon that stuff. And I will say this, and I want your feedback, Francis. To me, in retrospect, something was always off when I was a teenager, when I worked shitty jobs, and there were older guys who really wanted to be in on like the gross fucked up jokes for the teenage boys. Not saying that it was like a pervert thing, but there was a kind of weird patheticness about it. Always felt that way. And now even the thought of hypothetically trying to ingratiate myself with, younger people by being like, I'm going to talk as fucked up as you. No, that horrifies me.
Yeah. I got to tell you, my nephew one time, and this was years ago, my nephew's in his early 20s now, and he's, as far as I can tell, normal. But he was telling me about some game that he was playing. It wasn't Helldivers. It was something pre-Helldivers. That's how long ago it was. But he said something about like running with some group that was like that. Their name was like a Nazi kind of. It wasn't like fully like we're the Iron Cross, Jew haters or anything. But it was like some reference to it. And I said, look, man, I need you to understand that even when you're ironically doing this, it looks like you're just a Nazi. Like if you're running with people and you're like, oh, we're making these jokes, you just look like a dickhead Nazi to everybody else on the outside of that. Yeah. And I could tell nobody had ever said that to him. And I'm glad that he did that. He said that to me because he and I always talk video games because my older brother, who is, he's 17 years older than me. So, and of course, he's not going to talk to his dad about the video games. He talks to me about them because he and I both play video games. And so when he was telling me that, that was the first time I was kind of like, look, man, you can't do that because that doesn't look good. And I could tell that it kind of, that it hit him. He was just like, oh, yeah, you're right on that. And, or just to be like, look, I get why you think this is funny. I understand why you think that this is funny. I need you to understand it's not, though, and then like, I understand it because I was a shithead 16-year-old once upon a time, too. I was somebody who also was just like, I wonder what boundaries I can push to, be funny or do this or do that. And it's embarrassing. And I'm not proud of it, but also I was a shithead teenager, whatever. You're a shithead teenager. Let me be the person who I never had to be able to grab you by the head and say, don't do that. You look like an asshole.
I mean, it's interesting because I look back on it and I think about being that age, and it's like there's some things that I'm proud of where like, I helped out friends. I remember one summer taking a friend of mine, he was a teammate of mine, like he didn't have a driver's license yet. And so I just drove him to practice every day, twice a day when in the summer because he was my friend and like his parents both worked. And it was just like, I did things like that, like with younger kids on the team, sometimes like, would kind of help them sort of phase into stuff, be like, get used to what it was like being on a high school, a very competitive team, little things here and there, helping somebody like who was stranded on the side of the road one time. But then also like, I did some stuff that was just objectively bullying, just mean. And it wasn't even people that I hated. It was to people that like I was friends with, but like we were just mean to each other back and forth. And I was in a position to be meaner to them. And like, I really regret that. I said some stuff that I would absolutely not stand by just trying to be shocking and transgressive. I'm glad that shit's gone off the internet now. I'm glad that phase of the internet's gone because it's just like, I don't even remember what it was, but I remember some of the dumb bullshit that I thought was funny and I would shudder to think. And I think that's natural. And it's just like, And
I know that, I don't know how much you've been following the Graham Lautner nonsense.
I heard a little bit about it.
Yeah. And like, the thing is that I personally would hate to be ever judged for the person I was when I was, young and dumb and in the army. And we're not going to relitigate anything. We're not going to sit here. I'm not defending anybody. The guy's an idiot one way or another. Fine. I don't live in Maine. I don't give a shit. But at the same time, I understand that I have a checkered past, and that if somebody brought it up to me, I personally, if somebody's like, look at this shit that you wrote on the internet, when you were 24, and I will 100% tell you, yeah, that guy was a shithead. You shouldn't listen to him. I'm not that person anymore.
No.
I don't ever want to be judged by the person I was 10, 15 years ago, especially at my age when we're talking about my 20s. Get back to me when I'm 60 and be like, do you want to be judged by who you were when you were 40? I hope so. I feel like I'm a better person now. I feel like my head is further out of my ass, maybe not completely, but that we all have a history on the internet at this point. And I have as much of a checkered history as anybody else who has been online since they were a teenager. So I don't know. We've gone in a lot of directions here with this. I am glad that and as you said, trying to make friends with teenagers. One thing that has really solidified me with I don't want to be friends with anybody under the age of 30 is my daughter does Irish dance, so I'm around teenage girls all the time, and I love them all to death. I want nothing more than for them to be happy and successful and healthy and go on to do great things. But goddamn, if I've got to listen to them talk about Taylor Swift's or fucking 6ix9ine or any of this other shit, man, I'm going to throw myself out of a window. I don't have anything to talk to them about other than, do you need a ride somewhere? And don't do stupid stuff that I did. This is the only conversation I can have with a teenager at this point.
One of my friends from New York, their younger son is a senior in high school, and he's gotten into music production a lot. And it's been nice to just exchange emails. Giving him feedback on his work and how to do stuff when he doesn't have the budget to buy, plugins and things. And that's been cool. It's nice, but I'm happy to give advice when solicited and let him go about having his life. But I wouldn't necessarily be interested in being really close friends with someone that age, in the sense of, unless if they were an intern, because I've worked with kids that age before, but I don't have a job that does that anymore. You know what I mean? It's
mentorship.
Mentorship is nice. Yeah. But there's always going to be that separation. There's always going to be that, yes. I'm friends with our intern from Trash Future. He's, I think 20, he's 20 now, but oftentimes he'll message me, he'll send me some ridiculous British ephemera, and he'll be like, what's your opinion about this book? I was thinking about reading it and stuff like that. But there's always that little bit of you have that role of being kind of a mentor, and it's not the same thing as being a peer. I mean, and it's not a slight on him. And I'm not trying to big myself up by saying that. It's I'm 20 years older than him, 21 years older than him. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be that distance. And it's but it's cool seeing him grow up. It's cool seeing my friend's kid who's 17 grow up, because I met him when he was 6, and seeing the stuff he's done musically, he's doing quite well. I'm really impressed. But I'm happy to in some way be here's my advice, which is a thing I would have loved to have had at his age when I was interested in doing my own creative work. But it's it's a different thing, and yeah, I am always kind of taken aback by, I've been seeing it lately with mostly just screenshots. I'm not on Twitter, but of people like Matt Iglesias and such being oh, now we can say slurs and be ironic post-leftists, except we're neoliberals. And it's man,
that wasn't the point. It was never the point.
You're so
the point was to be a better person. Yeah.
I don't know. And it's just one of these things where the Graham Lautner things, I had a friend in the army who talked about getting a Totenkopf tattoo and had no idea what it was. He had no idea what it was. Sure. And I believe him. It was nice.
Yeah,
nice dude.
It looks like a cool skull.
He's this 3/4 perspective skeleton, it's like a skull and crossbones. And I was like, brother, that was the badge insignia for the SS. If you get that, people will think you are a Nazi, because it's a Nazi symbol. And he was like, oh, fuck, dude. Yeah, shit. I don't want that. And he didn't do it. I saw him again at Special Forces selection. We both got selected, and we had to, be in PTs and shower. And he did not, in fact, have a big Totenkopf Totenkopf fucking insignia on his thigh he planned on getting. I don't recall seeing it. So I was like, you know what? He didn't do it. I'm glad. He would have been the kind of person who would have gotten it. And I hope the tattoo artist would be like, brother, this is a Nazi symbol. But
this is the problem. He got it in Croatia. So I think they just assumes yeah, I mean, I guess you're just a Nazi.
I didn't know he got in Croatia.
He got it drunk in Croatia. And that, I think that was my biggest, like, well, I mean, that's why nobody told him, because they just assumed he was a Nazi because he was at a Nazi tattoo parlor, because he was in a tattoo parlor in Croatia.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, like, you start to kind of understand a little bit.
It's still fucking stupid, but it's just like,
I don't know, man. It's still really dumb.
Like, yeah, and also the doubling down on it. I don't know, man. Quite frankly.
Yeah, again, we don't have to relitigate it.
I don't know enough about it to really have an informed take. I just remember my friend, and I was grateful that he asked me, because I was like, no, man, like that's a Nazi tattoo. You really don't want that. And quite frankly, if you did get it, it's possible, like, you know, if they start like doing the thing like they do in the Marine Corps, where if you're an officer, you have to have your tattoos documented, like that's going to be considered an extremist tattoo. And I think that 100% made him think wiser.
You would be better to get a 3%er tattoo. They're okay with that.
Yeah, get an Oathbreakers tattoo. They were cool as fuck with that back then. Yeah. Actually, that was when this conversation was happening, especially before Obama got elected. But yeah, it's weird. I'm going to tell my story really quickly, which is Switzerland in miniature. I'm exhausted. I got like 4 hours of sleep last night because they are replacing the sprinklers in the mall downstairs, the fire sprinklers. And because for insurance reasons, like they're an old model and they need to be updated. But the mall management has been like, yeah, but it's too loud and disruptive to do it during the day when there's customers, like the stores, they can't do it. So they're doing it at night. Problem is the building is solid concrete. So for the second night in a row, the entire building started vibrating and it sounded like it was coming from everywhere. And I thought it was my neighbors upstairs, and I went up and banged the door, and dude was like, what the fuck? Why are you banging on my door? I have fucking kids. And I'm like, so do I. What are you fucking doing in there? And then it turned in like another neighbor came down and was like, what the fuck is going on? And like, we can't figure out where it's from. Like, I thought it was either above me or below me. I was like, I thought it was here, and now it sounds like it's in the elevator. And all 3 of us went out and we went to the mall to talk to the security guard, and they were working, and the guys were like, oh yeah, we have authorization to do it at night. They said we have to do it in the middle of the night. We're like, he's like, they didn't tell you? I'm like, no, none of us know. And normally they do tell you. And I'm like, everyone in the building got woken up, and it's just like, what? So I went and talked to the mall management to see, like, did they, and they're like, actually, that's not really a thing. We would tell the property management company, or the architects would be the ones responsible for telling the property management company when that kind of work's being done. Like, that's not really, like, it's being done in the building, but it's not our building. We're renting it from the, the owners, and the architects, or the property technical managers or whatever. So I was like, I have to pretend that my property management company that we rent from just didn't get informed, instead of just being stupid, and had to write this incredibly passive aggressive but still polite email in French, be like, yeah, I imagine with a project this complicated and large, it's possible they just didn't tell you. And it's like, you stupid fucks, you had them do it at the fucking from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. directly beneath this building. It's solid concrete, and they're using SDS drills. It's so loud. It's like the entire building is being turned into like a building shaped fucking gong that's just vibrating with the sound of the drill. Like, so people are like, wow, that seems really like the most un-Swiss thing. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of insane. This is not a thing you would expect to happen in this country. And yet, so thankfully I wasn't going to fight the guy, but he was pretty mad at me, and I was pretty mad at him. And then, but afterwards we realized, another true Geneva moment, because we're like, we need to call the cops and just file a complaint. Like the workers are like, it's fine, like we'll help you, because like that's fucked up, they didn't tell you. Anyway, so we had to wait like an hour for the cops to show up, because obviously it's not like a priority. And we realized, just bullshitting, that all of us there have kids, and all of us were like, yeah, I woke my kids up in the middle of the night with a drill. It fucking pissed me off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you've got that, everybody sitting around being like, yeah, this is fucked up. Wait a minute.
The security guard is a black dude from France. He's got a kid. The construction workers were 2 Portuguese guys who live in Switzerland. They both have, they both have families of their own and have kids. One of them has teenage kids. One has like a 1-year-old. The 2 floors up neighbor is a Libyan guy. He has 4 kids who are adults. And then the one floor up is a Portuguese guy, and he's got like an 11-year-old and like an 8-year-old. And obviously I've got a 2-year-old who got woken up by the noise. And then the cops showed up. They were completely Swiss, and they were just rude as fuck to us and told us to go home, like, fuck off. Like, they're like, we'll talk to these guys and check the paperwork, but you guys can fuck off, basically. And I was just like, wow, this is just Geneva in miniature, man. Also, cops are cops everywhere. Yeah. That's just a rule. So, man, I'm exhausted.
I will tell you about some plans that we have going on. My wife and I have, I'm going to be bringing Beth onto the show for December for some bonus episodes. Beth and I have a tradition of watching this movie called Operation Christmas Drop, which is a Netflix movie about in Guam, the Air Force does, they drop donations off to the inhabitants of many of the islands of the archipelago of Guam. So it's a fun little romantic Christmas kind of hallmarky movie. So I started looking into actual Hallmark movies that are Christmas and military related. So we've got Operation Christmas Drop, which is going to be the Air Force, Christmas Homecoming, which is a movie about a war widow and a guy who got fucked up in Iraq coming together and falling in love over Christmas. I've got USS Christmas, which is going to be our Navy one. And a brand new USAA actually funded a movie that just came out called Christmas on Duty. So we're going to go through and we're going to watch all of these god awful movies. And so some of them are going to be on the Patreon. Some of them are going to be released for the regular episodes. But I'm really looking forward to podcasting with my wife. We'll make it Wife Cast because I know Cynthia has been on a few times. It's been a minute since Cynthia has been on. I don't know how Cynthia feels about Hallmark movies. Maybe she can.
I think it's more a question of having time to watch a movie and having time to record a podcast because it's just been a lot busier now. Now the job is no longer all remote. That is true.
You do have a 2-year-old, and so it's a little bit. I think Beth and I, now that our daughter is 10, because we can at least watch the movie with our daughter. Yeah. I'm sure she's just gonna be like, this is fucking boring. I'm out of here. I'm gonna go listen to music in my room and read a book instead. Which fair. I probably am gonna wish that I could do that for some of these movies too. But so every Wednesday in December is the plan to release those. And so if you're part of the Patreon, you will absolutely get every episode. 4 of those are going to be coming out to you. Let's see, we got Thanksgiving coming up. Oh, also, I will be for the Patreons. I will be doing a video this week. I just got back from a week of traveling in Tennessee and Mississippi, down in the South, and boy, do I have some stories, Nate. I don't know what it is about the South, but every time we go to a restaurant and we'd eat, we'd pay the bill, and then the server would always be like, all right, y'all be careful out there now, okay? Every time. And I work with a bunch of people who are from Michigan. I'm from Missouri. And every time that was hit to us, it's like, are there fucking vampires out here? What are we worried about happening here? We're looking up crime stats, but everybody's just like, y'all be safe out there now. We got werewolves. So be on your P's and Q's out there, y'all.
Once Joe Biden got elected, they stopped saying "Have a blessed day, y'all." Now they say "Be careful out there" because America. You can't tell people to have a blessed day. You just have to tell them to be careful. Yeah, y'all be scared out there, please. World's terrifying place. Yeah, so I'm going to be gone next week because I am going to England to record an album with my songwriting partner in an actual studio with an actual producer who's someone I deeply respect and admire as a musician, who was like, yeah, I'll produce this for you. So that's a little bit of a secret and more to come once it's done. But I have written, I want to say 5 songs, may have a 6th one. Yeah, I have 6, and 6 demos I've recorded. 4 of them are ones I think are in good enough shape that we should work on them. And if we have time, we'll work on the other. My songwriting partner, Safine, has written 6, and I think he's got 5 that are in good enough shape. So almost an album length amount of stuff, but we'll see what we can get done. We're going to try to track everything we possibly can. And if we have room to work on stuff later, we will. But this is going to be an experience. It's something that I have often thought about and cannot believe is happening. And it has in fact happened. And we'll see what happens next. We're renting a house not too far from the studio out in the country, so we can just come home and chill out and not be dealing with, hotel anonymity, coldness. We're gonna do it. And I cannot, I'm really blown away, but I also, throughout this recording, I'm like, I have so much stuff I have to get done, and I just get ready for it. I am in such bad shape today from, sleeping from about 10 till about 1, and then from about 4 to 7. So I guess that's more than 4 hours, but it felt worse. So actually it's probably more like 5 to 7. It's not real sleep.
We're of an age. Yeah. We're of an age that you can get 6 hours of sleep, but they have to be contiguous.
Yeah.
You can't.
And also I don't know, having getting in, we started an argument, I thought this dude might fucking hit me, and then it was fine, we were cool, but then having to go downstairs and relative, my America radar was completely fucking me up because one of the people was like, yeah, we need to get your names, we need to write this stuff down, we need to file a report, and in America that would be so confrontational. People, then everyone there was like, yeah, it's cool, man, no problem. I mean, we've got the paperwork, we're legit. And it's frankly, we'd be pissed too if it was our house and they were doing this shit to us. So yeah, it's fine. And I was like, whoa, This is not going the way that I thought it was going to.
Then the cops showed up and you're like, that's what I expected. Yeah,
fuck off, get out of here. That's what I was like, yeah, y'all look different, your uniforms are different, they look like
the racism patrol showed up.
They look in their autumn coldish weather, kind of fleece windbreaker jackets. The best way I could describe it is they looked like a combination of bike cops in America and cops dress uniforms in America. It was strange. Okay. But they had tasers and guns because cops carry guns here, and Yeah, and they had rank that looked like British Army rank, like the diamond. I guess the Afghans use that kind of rank too. Like, and it was just odd. One of them was like a really big barrel-chested guy who spoke very, very politely, and he was supposed to fuck off. And there was like a younger guy who was like looked like a ultra marathoner, shaved head, bald dude. And yeah, they were both obviously native French speakers and probably Swiss, I presume. And they were just like, yeah, they were dicks. And I was just like, cool, cops. Same everywhere.
Especially when you give him a gun. All right, Nate, thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go and lay down in the dark. Hopefully you can get a quiet hour or two. And I am looking forward. This is the first I'm hearing about this the studio album, so I'm excited to hear, because I've everything that you've done so far, like the little cloghead
songs for Trash Future.
Yeah, and it's really like, I know they're jokey songs, but they're very good. Like, you guys obviously have a lot of talent. You know what you're doing. So I'm looking forward to, like, hey, we're going to have a collaborative space. We're going to sit down and have, this studio and this relaxing place and this place where we're, I'm excited to see what you can do when you get to put 100% towards this project. So
I am too, and I also feel like I have a million things I need to get done, and part of me is like, Cynthia has been so incredibly supportive, and I'm so grateful for that. And I still feel like a bad partner and a bad parent that I'm leaving for something that's not essential, because like it's always so much harder when you're solo parenting. So like, obviously I'm grateful, and this is the last travel I'm going to be doing before the end of the year, and Cynthia has to go for a week every January for a work conference, and like I have to solo parent. So like, it's not as if it's unheard of, but man, I'm excited, and I will absolutely and when it's actually a thing that is ready, done, recorded, overdubbed, mixed, ready, mastered, ready to be released, then we will in fact announce it and release it. We'll see what happens, but yeah, man, I'm excited.
Good. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Remember, you can always get more of this at patreon.com/whatahellofawaydtodie. And if you don't want to sign up, that's fine. You can actually buy the episodes individually. I know a few people have been doing that. So we want you to sign up, because you get so much more when you sign up. You get put into our monthly raffle. I'm always giving out free stuff to anybody who's $3 above. Obviously, it's not just episodes that we put out. I put out videos and things like that. So you are missing out if you're not on the Patreon regularly. So check that out, patreon.com/hellofawaydtodie. Nate, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Have a good one.